Nick and I have a funny story about the drag game.
I don't know.
Oh, wait, no, this isn't the Starcast. Sorry.
This is the Brutal Blast.
Yeah.
This isn't the Starcast, it's the Brutal Blast!
This is the Idle News Pod Blast for August 13th, 2009, and I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I love how Nick's always got that, like, I'm Nick Brecken. How's it going? Who are you? What are you doing here? Get out of my apartment.
Sorry. And I'm Jake Rodkin. We got a great blast for you tonight, or whatever this is this morning.
Yep. Nick and I went and played Brütal Legend.
Yeah.
Did you beat it?
We beat it. We beat the whole round of multiplayer.
Oh, you're playing a multiplayer.
We played a
multiplayer.
Yeah.
Yep. Did you play, how many rounds did you play, Nick?
2.
2? Yeah, did you play a co-op one?
No.
Ha, I did.
Oh,
nice one.
Yeah, it's funny because I think Nick and I both were somewhat skeptical about the multiplayer in Brütal Legend.
Yeah.
And it's funny because historically speaking, this was actually the first thing anyone knew about Brütal Legend, that it
Right.
was a multiplayer strategy game. That was like revealed in job postings 5 years ago or more. Or maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, it was definitely the first thing that anyone knew about the game.
Pretty close to Psychonauts coming out, it seems like.
Yeah, right. Which was 5 years ago at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Or no, I guess it was 4 years ago.
More like
Sorry,
4.
I'm dumb.
Let's keep saying if it was 4 or 5. It was 4.
And it is. It's actually a multiplayer strategy game. It's almost Pikmin-esque in its structure, which, gives it.
I had heard that used as a descriptor for a while.
Yeah. And that's bonus points for me, kind of right off the bat.
You're sort of commanding troops around on your battlefield.
I mean, it's the best way, in my opinion, to do strategy on a console, which is
Pikmin in your mind.
Right. Yeah. It's to me,
just where your player avatar is also sort of effectively the cursor.
Right.
Yeah.
I think doing an actual abstract cursor is not workable on a console, in my opinion. But I think it makes a lot of sense to have it actually be a character that has his own personal restrictions on movement and mobility, and I think that makes a lot of sense in that framework. And this game does that, and it works pretty well.
Yeah.
Basically, you've got there's the maps we played anyway. There's a base on each side of a relatively large map, and you've got your character from one of 3 or 4 different factions.
4 factions.
4 factions, and each faction has totally different units and special attributes and things. And you create units at your base, and then you go and essentially capture checkpoints,
resource points,
right? And then make your way towards the enemy's base and destroy the enemy's base, and then you win. There isn't any like base building per se. It's almost like Dawn of War 2.
You upgrade your base, but you don't.
Right. I mean, it is like Dawn of War in that respect, where you can upgrade
structures.
things and capture resource points, but you don't build any buildings from scratch.
Yep.
And it's surprisingly fun.
It's pretty
I
fun.
mean, I don't know if surprisingly is like. I mean, I don't know entirely what I mean by that because I don't know how many specific expectations I had.
Right.
But it definitely was a clever, fun game that I really enjoyed playing and would like to play more of pretty soon.
Yeah.
It's got a good mix of that kind of top-down strategy and then just sort of much more direct kind of action game feel. Because you can at any time jump onto or combine with any unit.
Yeah.
I think any unit, right? I mean, it looks like
every unit.
Yeah, every unit in the game you can go up to and press a button, and your character.
Are there non-vehicle units?
Yes.
And you can.
In fact, there are more non-vehicle units.
So it's like if there's a dude running around, you can combine with a dude.
Yeah, you can jump on his back or like
crazy.
They'll sort of like burrow you sometimes,
Right.
or like there's a guy with a shovel and he'll just like dig you a hole and then you jump down in the hole.
Sort of just go down to one-on-one actiony stuff.
Yes,
right.
Those guys. That's cool.
Or at any time you can just jump on the ground yourself and run around.
A lot of the strategy is determining whether to do that and when to run away if you have, because it's a lot easier to get killed, obviously, on the ground.
Olimar is down, is what you're saying.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
At any time, you can sprout wings, regardless of which character you are, and just kind of fly away for the most part to safety.
Does the Brütal Legend single player mechanics or game have all this stuff? It seems
Yeah,
like it must.
Yes, it does.
does
That's
actually.
actually really cool. Then.
It is really cool.
Way
And
to go
actually,
that game,
it's-
apparently. I
know.
really want to play it now.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah.
And it definitely seems like the way to go is to play single player first because it was a little overwhelming jumping right into this multiplayer game. I mean, it's fairly complex.
I was actually, I mean, again, surprised at how not underwhelming, but how not
How
overwhelmed
totally
I
boring.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I found it fairly.
But I
easy
mean,
to pick up.
I just
if
I
you're
played
used
against
to,
someone
like,
who
you
knew
know.
what they were doing, and I just got demolished. Because
Oh,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like they knew basic strategy and things, and
Well, there aren't many paths, so much as
well, right.
it's just
but
the
I mean,
one building.
by that, but I mean, there are.
I mean, I
spots
just don't want to give people the wrong impression that it's. I mean, it has
No,
some
it's
depth,
not-
but it's
right.
not. It's
No,
not
no.
like whoa,
It's
there
not-
are upgrade
yeah.
paths. And you got to know build orders, and
No.
it's actually
there's
fairly
there's no
straightforward.
tech tree or anything
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I don't mean.
Did you get the impression that there is going to be my only point of reference for this is Pikmin, but Pikmin has
Right.
very little. There's the only upgrade you can get is like you can have flour on your head that makes you faster, or a
Right.
red spark on your head which makes you even faster.
Well-
But there's the amount of actual strategizing in different ways that you can defeat the other player within a single map is pretty high in that game.
Well, there are multiple tech tiers, or 3 or whatever, where you upgrade
Yeah.
your main base. But then beyond that, you can build specific units from other units.
It's really about
and so
knowing-
there are kind of a couple branches there. They're not branches you choose between. I just mean there are branches in terms of where you can build guys and what types of units you can build from
okay,
where.
so like
and
a
how,
mobile unit can actually just deploy other dudes.
yeah, and in fact, one of the factions, one of its main advantages is that it has a unit. It can the nuns you've seen from the trailer,
Yeah.
the crazy nun demon, like that faction, that unit can actually deploy units anywhere, which is the main advantage of that faction. And so there are different sides to the different factions, but
Yeah.
it's quite fun.
Yeah. The strategy is really more about knowing exactly what you should be doing at any
Right.
particular time.
It's knowing
because
when,
like your
when
base
to push forward.
For
when
an example, like you're not building base structures, but your
Right.
base has turrets and it has like different spells and things that you can use like while you're sort of commanding your base.
right.
So if your base is getting attacked and you're also attacking, you have to know whether you should stay with your guys or run back to your base, and then. You also have like spells that you like.
Right.
I mean,
You've got a
they're
whole
like guitar,
rotary wheel. Of
yeah,
these
or rotary
different
wheel, like
spells.
personal
Is that
like
stuff-
avatar spells.
What is the interface for that stuff? For the guitar? Is it sort of
It's
like
a wheel.
Little
It's a-
Guitar Hero. The interface is a rotary, like a radial menu.
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
that you
the way
select
that you call them up, is it like
with a little
It's like the
rhythm
ocarina
game thing.
It's like a quick time event.
It's exactly. It's like the ocarina.
Yeah,
but it's
like
sort of
that.
presented with a Guitar Hero aesthetic,
Right.
Basically,
Right.
yeah.
Which Nick and I were, I think, less than thrilled about. I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it seems sort of unnecessary,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I think the reason they put it in there is to take up time,
yeah.
so that
There's going to be a delay
while you're
because
casting a big, powerful spell, someone else can come and interrupt you by smacking you.
and
in
then
the
if
head or
at that
whatever,
point
but-
you may as well have the player doing something while it's going on, I guess.
Right.
But I don't know.
Well,
It's sort of
Is
unnecessary,
it actually
but-
like the ocarina, or is it that you have to actually hit notes in time with the music?
You have to hit it in
hit them
time.
in time with
like
the music.
like the ocarina or the Wind Waker, you just go "Doo-doo-doo-doo," and
Yeah,
it
you
just
can't
Right,
have
has
that's
that
true.
spell.
No,
This
in
is
this
always-
one, it's like
yeah.
a rhythm game where you have
Okay.
to. Yeah, you have to actually hit them in
That
rhythm.
also makes more sense with the sort of in-world narrative of you have to actually like bust out this musically
Right.
accurate guitar
Sure.
riff
Right.
that Sorry, I'm going to get into stupid minutia that has nothing to do with the game. 'Cause I'm
No,
just
that's
curious
fine.
about this
Go
stuff. Do those? Is it like mixed interactively with the game? Like when you play those, does it actually beat match with the world music and stuff, or is it just a
No,
completely different
no.
layer?
Yeah, it's just
All right. I was just curious.
No, I think that'd be cool.
That was sort of my
just
dream
like-
was that those notes would sort of, if it was somehow able to figure out how to
Yeah.
play what sounds like a guitar solo on
Oh,
that
right.
music, but
No,
it's still
no,
also
they're-
sort of melodically, structurally close to the
Right.
to the same spell. But that would be
Yeah,
impossible.
because they have to start arbitrarily whenever you go,
yeah.
and then also
Oh,
the-
I mean, since it
the
was since it-
tempo changes. The harder they are, the faster the tempo. So
Okay.
Yeah.
any of those has to be able to go at any time.
yeah, that makes sense.
But so yeah, that happens. That's how you cast big crazy spells. And yeah, it seemed like there were maps that were more complex than the ones we played.
Mhm.
They were
Yes.
saying there are maps with multiple control points.
Yeah,
and-
that would certainly add
yeah.
a lot of depth to it
Right,
because
right.
yeah, we played fairly straightforward maps where it
Yeah.
was just there's a
Two
resource
bases and a
geyser
point in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. And it definitely seems like the kind of game where, like Pikmin, there will be just saying there will be some fairly viable
following.
different. Well, that, but also some fairly viable different kind of broad strategies. I mean, the guy
that's what I was asking
who
about.
runs for the control point immediately.
Yeah.
The guy who
well, I
hangs
mean,
back
also, I
and
mean,
builds-
there are sort of huge, powerful units that you could sort of rush for if you wanted
right.
to.
You just
But
tear
that would
up-
be
you have to
fairly
tear up
risky
to
because
those. Yeah,
you
right.
know you can take them down and
Right. It's
then you've blown all your resources. But
it will need to develop a cult following because it's not going to develop.
Yeah, the game isn't going to have like a. It's
mainstream,
going to
like,
have, yeah.
it's pretty, yeah. It's
unusual.
It's surprising
I mean,
in that respect as well.
I mean,
that-
the closest metaphor for this game is Pikmin, and that's not one that most people know.
Yeah.
So especially in a multiplayer context. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely, I think, going to have maybe a tough time on like Xbox Live or PlayStation Network just grabbing a certain threshold of players. But it is the kind of thing I could see a bunch of people
There
just
could be
kind of
a community forming around this, possibly if it
right.
in practice plays out.
Right. And I think it's helped by the fact that it's a single player game that I think's been promoted pretty heavily, and a lot of people are probably going to be excited about it. And it seems to connect pretty directly from the single player to the multiplayer in terms of mechanics and gameplay.
That's cool.
I mean, they did say, Eric Robson was saying on Twitter that he's the lead designer of the game. He's also the lead designer of Psychonauts. He was saying they actually started with the multiplayer component first and then developed the single player game.
That makes total sense. A lot of games do that.
A lot of games do that, but you know,
It's
a Tim Shafer game never
It's weird to
has.
have this conversation
So-
about a Tim Shafer game.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I think that will help out to an extent.
Do you know if it's going to support split screen?
Eesh, I'm not sure.
Mm.
We played with local co-op. I mean,
Yeah.
LAN, essentially.
Because I
System.
have
My guess
friends
is
who
no.
like this sort of game, but I don't have two Xboxes at my house.
Right.
I would guess not.
Yeah.
If only because of the UI and
Yeah, it makes sense.
It does fill the screen.
yeah.
But Jake, that's a really good point, though, because this does feel like more of a local co-op game where you would... It's the kind of
You don't
goofy
like,
game you'd want to be playing in the
Yeah.
same room, yeah. But, we'll see. I was definitely impressed, certainly more so than I guess I expected. I don't really know what I expected, but it was cool.
Yeah.
It was a fun game.
Sweet.
Yep. Brütal Legend. The most brutal of legends. Oh, man, did you guys see the promotional clip they put up?
The Rubik's
Cube.
Cube
Yeah.
versus
Yes.
soundtrack? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Also, I enjoyed the track listing for the soundtrack.
I know. It's surprisingly huge.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that was EA and how much of that was already locked in.
I don't know, but it was more or less at least the type of list that I was expecting, both in scope and in general contents for that game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, it does have a bunch of original music by Peter McConnell, apparently, which is cool.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Peter McConnell, the composer of Psychonauts and
Grim Fandango and Full Throttle and Day of the Tentacle.
right,
Yeah.
the non-rock stuff in Full Throttle, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that was a downbeat, brutal cast.
Yeah, that wasn't brutal enough for
What do we
Yeah.
have to say about this cast?
Brütal Legend.
Brütal Legend, the video game. Thanks for listening to this miniature cast about Brütal Legend,
Thanks.
the video game.
Video game. It's-
I'm going to say again that I think it's weird that you guys just had that conversation about a Tim Shafer game.
I know it is.
Yeah,
it is really bizarre.
Also, for
It's
what's
pretty
worth,
weird.
I mean, I've wanted to play Brütal Legend forever because I love Tim Shafer and all of his games.
right.
But now I really want to play it.
Yeah,
So that's good.
yeah.
It's
Like,
yeah, it's
you've
interesting.
made me
It's-
like genuinely interested in checking this game out beyond Tim Shafer made it, and it looks like the game that he has wanted to make for a long time because it's
Right.
about all of the dorky
Yeah.
things that he likes.
Right.
But apparently also,
I'm going to
has
predict
gameplay
that,
mechanics.
that people won't play this mode. I mean,
That's fine, but I mean,
think
I will
most
be-
people, I think most people probably won't.
I'll be
yeah.
pretty pessimistic about it, but I think for people who are,
Would
kind
you
of
play it?
open-minded, I think
Right.
will be surprised and happy that, hey, it's worth, actually clicking on multiplayer as opposed to knowing that it's just deathmatch.
The thing that I like
Right.
about it is all the stuff that you guys just talked about, which does sound interesting to me, and it does sound like there's more complexity to it than what I was expecting from the game.
Yep.
Is the single player game as well?
Right.
Yeah.
In that,
I mean,
the single player game equally.
They've put out like 40
Right.
minutes of gameplay, and I haven't really watched any of it yet. In all
Yeah.
honesty, so
I've seen every time I see that game at a press event, and I've seen it at a bunch of press events. They pretty much show the same like first level stuff, which is not that.
yeah, but like even in
Like,
that
not
video,
that
doesn't,
interesting, like-
doesn't Tim say also the real game is a real game? Like I've heard that's like
Oh, I don't know.
after they play the prologue, it's like also there's a whole open world game that's really good after this.
Yeah, I mean, there's open world.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's
But I mean,
obviously
open
the-
world is different though than like because I mean,
Well, I guess this is sort of large arena strategy stuff.
This is more to do with sort of just the depth of the actual like moment to moment interaction you have, as opposed to whether it's set in a linear level or an open world level.
Yeah.
I didn't expect the stuff I didn't expect is how much your character can control essentially. That's and I wonder how that'll play into single player, because that's really really interesting.
It's been pitched as sort of the shtick of the game that you're this guy who ends up being sort of the weird heavy metal equivalent of a great general.
Yeah, it's true.
It's good that the game is all actually about controlling troops and then jumping around in a huge battlefield.
I'm just surprised that it goes as far in that direction, which is cool. I mean, it does make me a lot more curious about the single player game.
Yeah.
So well done, Tim Shafer. Also, it's cool that EA, I mean, I just got to say, it's cool that EA is using Tim Shafer so much in their promotion. I mean, I find it interesting and sort of encouraging that Electronic Arts is latching on so much to the fact that they do have a fairly charismatic, funny person who wrote this game and conceived it and is there to show it off. I mean, I don't remember that being so much the case with Psychonauts, for example, or really LucasArts for that matter either.
I get the feeling that LucasArts had been headed in that direction, but then just like from talking to people who were working in PR and marketing there at the time, like it sounded like the game that Tim was working on after Grimm, like they were
spy thing. Or
they were, whatever that was, the spy game. It keeps people keep talking about it for some reason, but yeah, like they had been, from what I heard, they'd been like video documenting everything and doing a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff. But then that game, those people all went and made Double Fine, I guess, before that game was
By the way,
ever announced.
Double Fine has now existed for 9 years.
Yep.
Jeez.
That's really weird. They had their 9th birthday recently. I remember, it feels anyway, relatively not that long ago, that it's like, oh man, Tim Shafer's making a video game company.
Yeah, that was 2000.
Yeah, that's a long time ago now.
Yep.
That's weird. Also, they're making their 2nd game.
Yep.
Hopefully the next one doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
That's what they said about Psychonauts.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh well. I guess 4 years versus 5.
So the next one will be in 3.
Yeah, that's not so bad. Brütal Legend. You should probably play it.
In October.
Yes.
Rocktober.
Lizard, sorry. Thanks.
Wake up!
Jesus Christ.
Stop. All right.
We didn't have to do the date for the main cast.
No, I know. And this is the date.
Oh, this is already brutal.
Brütal Legend.
Cast.
Yeah, it's a brutal cast.
Wieder was ist da? Wieder was ist da?
This is in there. Why not?
Yeah, dude, it's not got the horse bag. Got the horse bag.